Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? Okay, so we've got the second match of the head-to-head series starting very shortly with two players from the Of Murlocs and Men stream. So I've got my co-host Aknar with me again. Amazing. And yeah, I'm excited. We got some new features that we're hopefully going to run very smoothly in this stream. So, I'm looking forward to it. So they've told me what they're playing first of all. They've both actually queued Warrior for their first one. So yeah, very interesting. We are, yes. They felt that they would have liked a bit more time to be able to draft their decks, to do it the way that I would have hopefully liked to do it. So I was a bit flexible this time to obviously get them on, which I really appreciate them doing, because obviously we can't do the shows without. But yeah, in the future, they're going to hopefully be back and we'll get the more strict rules that we're hoping to follow in place then. But yeah, so I've got all the deck lists ready to review for each player. If we want to, should we go over them? Yeah, I've got. I actually can't remember which players' decks I've got here, so let me just double check which one that is. So, Sam has the Lich Kings. No sound at all. There's no sound at all. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's happened here. There's literally no sound on the stream. Oh my gosh, this is annoying. Um, yeah, there's no desktop audio, so let me see why that is. Desktop audio. Test. Now try.
Okay,
There
let's
we go.
try this again.
Yeah, we got
We're
him.
good now. Okay,
We got him. Okay.
So yeah, so as I was saying, since I won't repeat myself too much here, but basically the overall thoughts that I had on the drafts were that they really don't value 2 mana 2/3s. At least not how I would value them. I think that they are important to definitely to an extent in this meta. That's my personal feeling, especially with Paladin. And we're going to be seeing that they decided in a lot of their decisions here to just kind of, two mana 2/3 is not that big a deal, especially in this Paladin deck. I think for me, the key, we kind of picked out the Priest deck for Tex last time. This time, for me, the one deck to watch is going to be Sam's Paladin draft. Is that the one that we have on screen at the moment?
We have Sam's Paladin draft on the stream.
So you'll see that in the way that I've been drafting Paladin, the way that I've found success with it is to go much more aggressive. A lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s, maybe a handful of a couple 4s and 5s, and then you've got your Steeds and your Vine Cleaver and your Silver Sword, and that's your late game to carry you across. And this one, we've got Double Violet Worm, Volcanosaur, and the first pick of the draft, which really kind of steered the draft in a much different direction, was the Spiteful Summoner.
It was a pretty crazy pick, wasn't it? I watched it and I was like, whoa.
the very first pick of the draft, and it was up against an equality. And I think maybe there was a little bit of spirit of memeing that was going on with this, just kind of have a fun pick. But I think if you're try-harding for leaderboard, or you really, really want to 100% get the best quality deck, Spiteful Summoner is not usually the way to go, especially in Paladin, where you want to pick your qualities, you want to pick the Potions of Heroism. So that ended up being a pick that swayed a lot of the later picks. And in general, I was very interested that, there was I think in the middle of the draft, they had a Volcanosaur that was picked over a Rockpool Hunter when they had no 2-drops. They had a Shallow Gravedigger that they picked over a River Croc.
Yeah, we can actually bring all those snapshots up if you want to right now. Seems we're talking about them, so we'll go up to them.
I mean, if you want, we can go over those specific ones later, since they're going to be queuing with the Warriors.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We'll just stick to the deck.
Or we can look. We can look a little bit at Storm's decks as well if you want.
Yeah. We'll switch to his deck list. Have a little bit of chat about his now.
For me personally, I at least from my style, this is all the lens that I'm going to be looking through, is how I normally like to play these classes. I think Storm's decks make a little bit more sense. He has quite a bit a stronger curve on 2, I think, especially in the Paladin and the Warlock. But even in the Warrior, he has a handful of 2s as well. And it just, I don't know, the decks for Storm make a little bit more sense to me, at least from my playstyle. So
they all have a very similar playstyle as well. You can tell, like, obviously these guys quite regularly play together and draft together. So you just look at the list and there's a very similar end game that they're going for with each of the heroes that they've chosen. So it's going to be interesting, and it's quite interesting that we've got a mirror match as the first one as well, even though they're blind queuing.
Yeah, we're gonna be going warrior to warrior here. Another thing I noticed in the warrior drafts was that they were not really valuing Bloodrazor that highly. For me, Bloodrazor has been a very key card in a paladin heavy meta. Bloodrazors and Frothings and then Spellstones at the end are kind of the backbone of what I like to do with Warrior. They ended up going with a Gorehowl early, I think, for Sam's Warrior. A Gorehowl over either a Frothing or a Bloodrazor early on in the draft. Well, I'll be interested to see how the Gorehowl does. In this format, it may work out well. I just think in general, Gorlas has lost a little bit of its value in this meta, given the speed that the meta has gone with Paladins being at the top. So, yeah.
Yeah, Warlock is my worst performer.
Oh, yeah, and the other interesting thing about both of these warriors we'll see is there is a Molten Blade in each one of them. And the Molten Blade was actually picked for Sam's, let's see, so we've got Storm's deck on screen. So they ended up picking a, let's see, the Molten Blade was taken over a Grim Necromancer early on. And I personally probably would have gone with the Grim Necromancer. I think you can have success with Molten Blade, but the only real success that I've ever had was actually with a 3 Molten Blade deck, and that seemed to work. It actually seemed to work well at the time because it had, when you have multiple Molten Blades, you have a better chance of hitting a weapon that you actually can use that turn, right? Now, with only a single copy of the Molten Blade, we'll have to see, because there are going to be those games where you get the Vine Cleaver when you need it, but there are going to be other games where it's a Dragon Soul or it's an Aluna, and it's like, I can't do anything with it this turn. So that's going to be fun, and who knows, the match may end up being decided by whose Molten Blade gets to the right weapon at the right time.
Yeah, so I think now we're going to actually queue into the first game. Seems to have been talking about the Warriors, so I'm just going to advise the players that's what we're going to do. So let's go with them. We'll get this transfer started up now. Going to get the nice new mulligan screen we've got on the go as well.
They also do, I think, both have a Forge of Souls in their decks. So that's a card that I'm not totally sure. I think it's probably one that you would consider keeping in the opening mulligan, I think. Especially with Sam's deck. He doesn't really have much in the way of 2s. So I would expect him to keep the Forge if it comes up for him.
Yeah, I'm just waiting them to confirm the queue now, and we'll be going in.
They were only offered 1 Spellstone each, I think. So they're not really Spellstone heavy warriors, but Sam does have a Lich King at the end. He also did decide to go with a Grand Archivist, which has the Spellstone as 1 target, and then it also has, let's see, a Forge of Souls, Execute, and Cleave are the other targets there. So nothing that can really come back to bite him. We'll see if there's any fun Grand Archivist RNG that goes on.
Okay, it's just, sorry about the little technical hiccups, it's just kicked me out of the match, so I'm just going to re-queue back into the match. A lovely spectator glitch there. So we will jump back in now and be on
So
our way.
Storm Scryer has the Molten Blade here, and he also has an MCT. I think you probably want to keep the Molten Blade in the opening hand. I think it's worth it enough to try to go for an early War Axe or even a Woodcutter's Axe. Sam here has Arcanite Reaper or Howland, which will Hyper. He's going to throw his whole hand.
Bring it on!
And he's going to be looking for one of his two fiery War Axes to hopefully get him started on the right foot here.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a spectator, but
bear with us. We're still working out all the kinks here. We've, Richie has been doing an awesome job working his butt off to get all this stuff together. And there's always going to be kinks, especially with the new series still. So Sam does end up with a fiery War Axe, and in fact, Stormscribe did decide to keep the Molten Blade in the opening hand. He also kept the MCT, and he ended up with the Woodcutter's Axe as well.
okay, we're in now. We're all good.
All
We've
right,
got the
all
thing.
right.
The game's on the screen, and now you get a game to enjoy.
Alrighty, there we go. So as we expected, with basically no twos in Sam's deck, he's going to end up hero powering here on turn 2. Be interested to see. So now he has a Shadow Blade with the Molten Blade, but he has an option with the Woodcutter's Axe.
Yeah, especially with the Rush Minion in Hound, there is an option. I wouldn't necessarily do it myself, but you could swing face here.
Do you swing? Yeah, exactly. You have the Molten Blade, but I don't think you swing. I think you probably hold it because you do have the option to coin the Phoenix into an Armor Smith, something like that. So there's no rush, I think, to get the Lost
He is
Captive,
actually going for the swing.
He is going for it. All right. Very good. Very good.
That is very interesting. So the stats on the Wasp, if he does hit while dropping it next turn, would make it a 3/4 until it becomes damaged.
Yes, and then it would be 6 attack at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he could choose to do that if he wanted to. Well, no, but it's a 3/4, so it would die to the.
It would die instantly. Yeah.
He probably the pick here is probably going to be a. I'm trying to see what is this weapon that he has. Oh, he has.
It's the Paladin Legendary.
So I'm gonna expect a coin Phoenix here. I think.
I would as well. Yeah.
Phoenix, and unfortunately, this is the risk when you hit face. There is that you sort of lock yourself in to losing the death rattle potentially.
Yeah, it is definitely a risk he took and hasn't paid off.
I think that might, if he had it to do over, he's actually not going to do the Phoenix though. He's actually going to go with the Sword. And the one thing here with the Molten Blade is that the buff or that the discount from the Dragonsmith will carry over to other weapons that it transforms into. So if it were to go into a what you call it, if it were to stay a Valinir or become some other 6-mana weapon, he would have access to it next turn.
The good thing with actually playing this minion instead of Phoenix, obviously there's a War Axe in Sam's hand, so the Phoenix would have just got killed straight off with the War Axe.
That is true, yeah, and that may also, and that of course, this is the unique. I was probably muted when I mentioned this, but both players do have access to each other's lists because they drafted these decks together. It's not the usual format that we're going to be going for, but for this week, it's going to be different from the last time when they were blind drafts basically. So Stormscribe does know that Sam has double fire War Axe, and that may have been part of his thinking there to avoid the Phoenix.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I did forget that was one thing that these players.
But now it seems to be the only play. Well, let's see. What is this? It's hard to see. Oh, a Luneth. Yeah. See, this is the part where Molten Blade is not really but it is discounted. So he can have a 4-mana Luneth. That's pretty OP, right?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, but no developing this turn. So he's going very slow with this Phoenix.
He really does want to get this buff on Wasp. He really is keen on getting that buff, I think. So I'm totally fine with the well, again, if you did want to play around War Axe, I mean, this is sort of playing into it a little bit, but maybe he feels like he can't play around it forever. I would expect to see the fiery War Axe here to kill the dragon, and then you can coin out the Scale Worm. I think that's probably the line that Sam's going to go with.
Yeah, so we get another 2. Point out the Scale Worm. It definitely makes sense, doesn't it? Having the board in this circumstance.
And again, there's going to be an option to Phoenix here, but now that he has developed the War Axe again, now he's really just incentivized from using Let's see what we get from the Molten Blade this time. Oh, a Woe Cleaver, but unfortunately, even with the discount, he cannot play it.
It's pretty nice that the discount carries over, isn't it?
The fun ups and downs of the Molten Blade. So the Grizzly seems like it's probably... The Grizzly would come down here as a 3/7.
What
It's actually not that good against this board.
It's not terrible, but...
You might think that he's going to set up something, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what he's planning to do. You know, he's really obviously invested in getting the Death Rattle effect onto his Rush minion. So next turn he'll have the mana, if he chooses to pay the Phoenix and the Rush minion and get the buff. So that's the line of play I think he's trying to set up right now.
Yeah, but it's a very clean kill for Sam. So Sam, I'm trying to remember. Let's see. Does he have any sort of? Does Stormsquire have any sort of AOE in his warrior deck? He does have a Warpath. He does have a Warpath, and he does have a Wild Pyro as well.
And a Blood Razor, obviously. So he's got.
There is the Blood Razor. So the fact that this is a fairly easy kill to put the Worm on 1 health, that might raise a little bit of red flag in Sam's mind as to him having some sort of a 1 damage AoE.
He also has the Primal Drake as well. AoE on a stick, as a lot of people like to say.
I think the 3 attack is okay. It might go with this here, I'm not sure. Poisonous is... yeah, I'm not sure. Those were all pretty lackluster picks. Divine Shield is really the one that you want to go for there.
So we can kill the 5/5 poison and be left with a 3/3 on board, but oh no, because he would use the Phoenix as well. So he would shoot the Phoenix.
This is probably the line you use the you use your face in here and then the Wasp can
exactly. Yeah. He could have actually no. This is the only way because of the Death Rattle.
He gets a full play here, and then of course he equips the 0 mana Bladed Gauntlet.
I thought you were being serious then. I was like, really? Would you actually
it's 0 mana. It's free weapon, right? Don't you want a free weapon?
I don't believe he has any armor gains in his deck that will actually synergize with that weapon.
It's going to come back to a Vine Cleaver. You know it's going to happen.
What now?
The question is, if he had the Spellstone in the deck, would you have equipped it there to make it 2 5/5s? It's very possible, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That would be a very strong play coming up. It might have been worth it in that case. But yeah, it's hard to say. Here it seems like a fairly easy Argent Commander. He does have the double weapon in hand. He might be looking to try to use another axe.
Now?
Problem is, what does he develop on top of that? Does he just develop the warrior on its own? The Bluegill warrior, that is. So I think that's why you probably just go with the more efficient curve play here.
True North Red.
He doesn't have anything this way towards so it's clear. But so now he actually gets a Gladiator's Longbow. This is a pretty good weapon here.
It is a pretty good weapon. The problem he's got is he doesn't have really anything to follow it up with, but dropping any of his hand into this board isn't really going to do much for him either.
An Arcanite Reaper that prevents damage to your face.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'd go with the Bone Drake. I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, I think.
But unfortunately, if he is maybe trying to think about Arcanite Reaper, then that's going to get answered. He might go with Bluegill Fungal Mancer. That's also a decent way to get the Fungal Mancer activated. But I think I would be okay developing the Reaper because you've got the double weapon in hand. It seems like that's the most efficient line here. But maybe he feels he's not going to have another spot to play Fungal. I don't think you want to drop the Lich King with the Bone Drake on board. I don't think it's time for that just yet, but he might say, Dr. 8, go!
I think that's his plan, yeah. I was actually considering using the weapon and the Bluegill, and then Hero Power in that turn to remove the minion and pushing the 4 damage face.
So just pick up the Anti-Magic Shell, which could end up being very nice here with the Bluegill Warrior.
So we got a little bit of emoting going on here on the top deck. Primal Drake for board, right?
Top deck Primordial Drake. Pretty Good card, and then the top deck dragon.
Oh my gosh.
That's some top deck wars going on right now.
Does he have an answer to kill it back? So yes, he does with the weapon as well, doesn't he? So that would be
He can
6
use
of
the
his 9
weapon.
mana.
He could use the bluegill if he wants to. It actually looks like probably the weapon plus bluegill, maybe. I think the Dragon Slayer is going to come down for sure.
Yeah, the Dragon Slayer is definitely using up 3 of his mana. When only with 6 mana left, and you want to finish off that minion, it's either the 3 attack or the 2 attack, the 3 attack weapon or the 2 attack minion, and you're gonna have mana left over, so you may as well play both. It's just how do you make the trade? I would use the weapon all the time to keep the minion on board. You know.
Yeah, I especially when you've got multiple weapons, you want to start going through those charges. I think. You can hold on to the bluegill. You have both the Mancer and the magic shell to go with it, and that's a nice bit of initiative to be able to have a 2 mana, 4 damage guy coming down. So this is a Kingsbane. Yeah, again, the most of the weapons so far that have been coming out of Molten Blade have been on the below average side.
Yeah, nothing that's gonna steal the game at the moment which is one of the reasons why they drafted the deck, believing it could get them a win condition they wouldn't necessarily have.
So he's going to go with the very strong play here of the Cobalt Monster, so that's going to allow him to play the Matriarch and develop a very strong board. And it seems that Sam is in a very, very strong position here at the moment.
Ooh, Warpath, so...
Unfortunately, Warpath can only deal the 5 damage in 1 turn, and
yeah,
he's going to have to do a little bit more to set this up. I'm wondering if he's going to go with... The big X factor here, obviously, is the MCT.
yeah.
But I don't know there's going to be a situation here, given Sam's hand, where he's going to...
So it's most likely going to be the double Warpath into the Taunt to just delay some damage, but the thing about the Scalebane is, you know, you don't have to attack into the Taunt, you can just leave it, it's still a threat, and it buffs the next minion he plays, so, yeah.
He is deciding to develop the Darius, which, this should help the thing is the life totals here, and that's the one, a very good top deck. The top deck execute here. Does he actually have lethal?
He might have lethal.
Shell? 9 plus, what would it be? 4?
7,
he doesn't have enough
14.
mana along.
He does have exact lethal, I believe. Exact lethal, 9 mana.
There you go. Oh, with the Arcanite, I wasn't even looking at the
Yeah.
Arcanite. Yep, there we go. Yeah, the life totals were just started doing a little too much. Sam was able to hold on to the board. even through the top deck Primordial Drake, it ended up being answered very nicely by the top deck Dragon Slayer. And of course, Dragon Slayer is one of those cards that's not quite as tilting as MCT, but when it swings the game, it swings the game so much. And I do kind of wish that Blizzard would steer away from these sorts of cards, especially in Arena. They feel so bad to have that big of a swing that happens. But in the end, that's kind of what brings it back there for. And the good selection of weapons, as we saw. The Molten Blade in that game was very awkward. There was only 1 turn. I think there was a Vine Cleaver on like turn 1. Now, that was like the only really good weapon I saw. I think there might have been a Shadow Blade early if he had the there. So Sam gets through with his warrior.
He does, yeah. So 1 warrior down, the other warrior's still left to play. I'm not sure what he's going to be queuing now, so I'll just double check with the players what class.
And we saw there that even without, Sam's deck was definitely able to. He had the strong, and the Mountain Fire on 3 actually ended up being very crucial. And that was one of the picks in the draft that I was a little bit curious about because it was right after the Gorehowl pick. They decided it was up against the Fire Plume Phoenix, and I think my sort of auto-piloting drafting, I probably would have picked Phoenix if I was just sort of going through the motions. But they said, well, we do kind of need 3s here. If we're not going to be going for 2 drops, then you've got to nail down that 3-drop slot. And sure enough, the Mountain Fire on Curve was a help there for Sam.
So they're both going to actually be queuing Paladin for this one. So
okay, so
may as
we've
well
got mirror lineups. So this is
Oh, I just lost a little bit of voice for you there. I think you're back now, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just seemed to drop out for a bit. So it'll be quite nice to actually go and talk about this Paladin draft for a minute. So, because we got some draft shots from the Paladin
Oh yeah,
on Sam's end.
We've got your new fancy setup with the draft picks.
We'll transfer over to that so we can get a discussion on some of the picks we were a bit surprised about. So,
yeah. Like we were saying earlier, this is kind of the overall drafting philosophy that they were following, is just to kind of steer away from 2-mana 2/3s. And of course, we talked about the very first pick was this Spiteful Summoner over Equality. This one was very, was like, wow, skipping the Equality to go with a Spiteful Summoner. Now, I mean, there's obviously times that Spiteful Summoner can work, but it tends to be more in those triple UI type Druid decks that you can get sometimes.
Or even when you've already drafted quite a heavy spell deck and it's later down the line and you're a bit like, okay, Spiteful Summoner can work here. You know, it's not necessarily the very first pick where you draft your whole deck around it. You know, it's a bit crazy.
And so then what's the next pick that you've got there?
So the next one we moved to was, I'm just looking now, his pick 19, okay? So
pick 19, okay.
Yeah, so we've got it here. He ended up picking, is it changed over? Ah, there we go, it hasn't changed now. There we go, yeah. So he ended up picking the Gravedigger instead of the River Croc.
It was over River Croc. Yeah, and this was one of those. This is one of those that I was very surprised about, and I'll be interested to see how this works out, because for me, even especially in Paladin, like, you want to get that aggressive start on 2. And I was thinking, you know, I can understand, you know, maybe sometimes you take a Volcanosaur, you know, really premium late game card over a 2-drop, but a Shallow Gravedigger, it's kind of a meh card. And I would have, for me, I would have definitely gone with the River Croc, but they just, you know, they're sort of saying, I'm just going to Hero Power on 2 and it's going to be fine. So in this format, it may end up working out. I'd be interested to see how this deck would play out on if you were to play it in Arena. I feel like maybe there might be a lot of games where the other Paladin is just going to get off to too good of a start. But yeah, and do you have some of the other picks there as well?
Yeah, we do. So a bit further on in the same draft, all the picks we are actually reviewing are for the same draft here, because it was a massive...
They went so greedy.
Yeah.
They went so greedy on these picks. Like, I think maybe, what do you have picked? Yeah.
So he ended up picking the Worm over the Fisherman.
Yeah, exactly. And again, once again, don't need 2-mana 2/3. And I think at this point they already had 2 swords, or was it 1 sword? I guess
just one silver sword they had at this point.
But there was a Volcanosaur and there was a Stormwind.
Yeah, and they had 2 steeds, so I think their plan was just getting a minion that's a bit sticky, you know, leaves loads of little minions round so that a lot of their cards would maybe hit with one of those Death Rattle minions, such as the Sword of Justice or the Silver Sword or the Steed, you know. And I think that's really why they went for the Worm here, but yeah, they turned down a lot of 2-drops when it could have potentially helped.
We are getting a little word here that the deck actually did end up going a Arena, so apparently this style can work. It's just not the style that I'm used to with Paladin, but it definitely. I mean, obviously, whenever you have the deck eventually ended up with 3 steeds because of the format. They do have to make a substitution for a triplicate, so they subbed in Sam subbed in the Chain Gang but whenever you have 3 steeds, you can't necessarily say you have a bad deck. So even if you fall a little bit behind some, you've got 3 steeds to catch you back up, and you've got a Silver Sword.
Yes.
Double work.
Very
so in the end, I'll be interested to see how these 2 play out against each other. It's probably going to be Stormscryer is probably going to be the aggro. He's obviously the more aggressive Paladin deck here, so he's going to probably be pushing face in a lot of instances where.
So there was one more pick where they actually turned down another 2-drop later in the draft. Which was...
it's just sort of the same theme that we've been covering. Now, Ghostly Charger is one of my favorite cards right now. I think it's maybe one of the cards that I picked out in the set overall that I was like, wow, this card is going to be really good, because when you compare it to an Arctic Commander we know is an insane card. It's 6 mana for 4 damage. The Charger can't go face, but in most matches you're not wanting to go face because it's a real board control meta. So the Charger is obviously a good pick as well. But again, it was sort of throwing me off that we were away from the 2. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, so we're going to actually begin get the players to queue into their next ones now. So both Paladin classes coming up. Okay, and then we'll get that screen ready to see the mulligan this time. Hopefully, no problems. But yeah, so we've got Sam 1-0 up, Warrior 1 match, and Storm Scryer has got the 3 classes left. So we'll see who'll take this. They've actually gone for a mirror match again, both choosing Paladins. So it'll be very interesting to see who is going to take this one.
So Sam actually does have one of his 2 drops, if you want to think of Bluegill as a 2-drop, if he wants to keep that. I think I would probably keep it, but he might be comfortable enough just hero powering. Might not keep the Gravedigger. I think he might want to go for like a Frost Rider or a Lone Champ.
Yes.
I'm not sure I would be comfortable keeping that. It's probably going to be a full... Well, he does have the Hench Clan Thug, so he might hold on to that.
Yeah, he's probably going to keep that, especially with the little 2 drops they've drafted. So they'll probably end up chucking the Silver Sword and Holy Light, obviously, both later game cards. And see if they can hit one of their 1 drops or another strong 3 drop. Ended up chucking it all in the end.
Storm's deck is a little bit more too heavy. He does have double Acidic Swampoos and he does have double Hydrologist. And he does end up nailing one of those Hydrologists. Those were actually a couple interesting picks as well. I think he went with the Hydrologist over, what was it? He went over a Righteous Protector early on. I think I might have a slight preference for the Righteous Protector there, but Hydrologist is really strong too. And he took a second Hydrologist later over either a Righteous Protector or an Argent Protector. So he really prefers having that sort of a 2-drop as well as a kind of a value.
So at the moment, he's obviously got the 3 secrets to choose from. I think a majority of the time here it's going to be the Noble Sack, which he does end up taking.
Yeah, Noble Sack has actually kind of come back into relevance. It's been sort of a weaker secret in past metas, but very, very strong option in the current meta. So the Coin Lone Champ seems to be the obvious way. He did hold on to that Gravedigger and threw the Bluegill Warrior. So he's I guess that makes sense though with the coin. You don't really need to hold on to the Warrior with the coin.
I don't need any of you.
Unfortunately,
do you ever Aldor Peacekeeper here?
Aldor Peacekeeper, just to keep the minion to tempo develop
I don't
and pop
think
the shield.
I don't think it's correct. It's probably just going to be a Dragon Slayer, but I'm just wondering. There are times when you would use the Alder early game, but I don't think this is actually. Yeah, it just goes with the 4-3 and tests the 2-4 very well.
Okay.
So he could go for a Sword of Justice here to do a full clear. The problem is that there's not really a strong... Now, this deck doesn't actually have that many 4s for Sam. He just has the Stegodon and also a Blessing of Kings. So he's probably going to be relying on... What would Uther do? That is the question. Does he develop the sword here? Is it too slow?
It's a little bit slow, but you kind of get the value back later on in it, and you wipe the board, which is a major thing with Paladin. I think I would have gone with the sword.
He can follow up next turn. He can just let Stormspire make the trade for him and then follow up with the sword. Since he doesn't, he just has the Earthen Ring next turn anyway, so he may feel like I develop the sword and then I can go into Charger into Spiteful.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see Storm here drop in the Aldor Peacekeeper on the 3-1 maybe. Or even just trading in, playing the Noble Sack and playing the Hench Clan behind. One of the 3 drops, not needing the Aldor Peacekeeper. Seems the Noble Sack contest the 3-1. Yeah, go on with the drop or Dragon Slayer. Yeah, this makes more sense than the original play.
A worthy fool.
Noble Sack will end up eating a Sword of Justice charge here. It's not the worst.
No.
So obviously we see the difference in the hands here. The way that Sam's deck is built is that he wants to have big boys. Unfortunately, the Sludge is going to put a bit of a kink in that plan.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
Draft, I think was there 2 Sludges in that deck? Yeah.
Was there actually 2 Sludges in it? Yes,
yeah,
there
are, and I do remember. Big deal in this sort of a meta with Paladins being at the top. Weapon destruction is definitely at one of its most premium spots.
What would Uther do?
So, sitting at 5 mana here, the taunt doesn't really do enough, does it?
Yeah,
So,
it seems like he's probably just going to kind of, yeah, this
play
is really
the charger, maybe. It's not great because then the 5/5 trades into it, but at least it removes the 4/1. But yeah,
this is a pretty good spot for Storm Scryer at the moment, and he's going to have this Vine Cleaver. It's going to come down at some point, and I think that might. He's going to have to get a lot of work out of the Spiteful Smith is going to have to probably high roll here, or the Spiteful Summoner, I should say. Excuse me. He does decide to go actually with the Shallow Gravedigger. Okay.
Reporting for duty.
okay, this does a similar job. Just the problem is obviously there's a chance that he could trade into the 3/1 and have another way of dealing with the 1/1 with one of his weapons in his deck. Can't remember which one did he have? Oh no, sorry, I was thinking of the other Sam's list. He had the cheaper weapons, the only lit weapons. Storm actually has in his deck, so the Fine Cleaver and Silver Sword, which are not playable at the moment. So we'll see. Okay, so yeah, Storm has just got quite a nice comfortable board here, and as we can see in Sam's list, he actually only really has the Avenging Wrath to snatch a board back, which he doesn't have in hand, and it's not obviously going to do much if it doesn't hit in the places he wants to. So he's just going to drop the Spiteful Summoner, which is the card we said they picked straight away. And obviously he ends up hitting one of his 6 mana cards. The thing is though, ooh, he hits a 4/5. Okay, the thing is, if he had actually chosen an equality here instead of the Spiteful Summoner, he wouldn't actually have anything to go with the equality. So here, the Spiteful Summoner is actually doing its work. It has developed a 4/4 and a 4/5, which is obviously taken down a weapon charge and a minion, but because the Vine Cleaver has been developed, which is a very powerful card, it removed the 4/4, developed 2 1/1s, and yeah, Storm's board is very strong at the moment. So we'll see where it goes from here. It's a bit harder to see on what Fruit Bat is deciding to play. You know, he's got a lot of cards in his hand, but they're all minions. So, you know, the Cobalt Apprentice could maybe ping off a 1/1 or the 4/2, you know. But it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? So maybe he's just going to drop the Volcanosaur here, hope to hit big with maybe a Taunt and plus HP, so that it would soak in a weapon and a minion. But this minion is just going to keep growing on the Hench Clan. Is just going to keep on growing.
And of course we're getting the dudes that are at. And this was the one spot worried about if this deck did get into, you know, does it have the mechanics to come back? There is an Avenging Wrath in the deck, which of course it doesn't have at the moment. And yeah, it just feels like this is probably GG.
Yeah, there's not really any comeback mechanic in Sam's hand. I can't remember off the top of my head if there's anything left in his list to maybe swing it. Oh, I mentioned previously that as an Avenging Wrath possibly might do something, but lone it's not going to really do a huge amount. So yeah, this is going to be a tough one for him to re-grab.
Yeah, and just a little, it is the Cinco de Mayo weekend here, so the next door neighbors there may be some music in the background from time to time that you will hear. So I'll put myself on Twitch to talk just so that's a little bit minimized.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I can't actually hear anything myself, so maybe it's not anything to worry about.
Reporting for duty. Act now.
So, really the only taunt he's obviously got a taunt in hand, but it's just a 1/2, so the only thing that potentially might keep him alive a turn is the Volcanosaur, but I don't know even if that does the job with the amount of damage he's got on board and his weapon.
Yeah, it's just too much here. It's kind of a fun meme that he gets to pull the worm here with the Coffin Crasher, but unfortunately this is going to be the end of the road for this game.
battle is
He
over.
does get to pull the worm at least, so he's like, at least I got the worm off. Yes.
He does, yes, he does. So that was nice to see. Okay, so we've actually got a tied up series now. If I remembering rightly, I don't know if I'm actually remembering right or not. But yeah, that is a tied up series now, 1-1. So
we've got the warrior out of the way for Sam, and now we have the paladin. I think the paladin deck was probably the strongest deck for Storm. So so that is not too surprising to see him draft. He did. It's interesting, even with the lack of 2-drops in Sam's deck, he still got the coin lone champ, and he had a fairly good start in that respect. But the quality of Storm's deck in the end was just a little bit too much.
A little bit stronger, yeah. You could tell that Sam's deck was very heavy in the hand. There was a lot of turns where you could only do one card at a time, and it was pretty much just playing a minion rather than some swing cards like weapons or spreading out a bit later so that the steeds could do something. If he, I can't remember, I don't believe he had them in hand, but if he drew into them, because he was being kept off the board quite well, so it was definitely a difficult place for Sam at that point in time, and Storm just pretty much took that win comfortably there. So I'm just finding out now what the players are planning to queue.
Yeah, Sam's deck is one. It has to get on a roll. It has to sort of get its footing. And if it does get knocked off the board, it has a little, especially there. The real swing, obviously, too, was the Sword of Justice getting used. I mean, if he had been able to keep the Sword of Justice there and start to build his snowball a little bit stronger there into maybe the green jelly, then the game may have been different. But that sludge hitting the Sword of Justice really was the blowout.
So Sam is sticking with the Paladin, and Storm is actually going to go back to the Warrior, so this will be interesting to see. Okay. So I think we're just going to get them to queue straight away and get these games continued, which should make things a bit more smoother.
Storm does also have a corrosive sludge in this warrior deck, so there is some potential for some more weapon destruction going on there.
Storm has, oh, okay, yeah. He obviously, I don't know yourself, but I assume you do draft weapon removal quite highly, because obviously Paladin is dominant in the meta at the moment, and if they keep their weapons up, if you have the ability to remove them, it can swing it back in your favor. So yeah, weapon removal is a massive priority in this meta. But we're going into the game now, so we'll get Paladin on to see who's got what.
So he does have that sludge in the hand there. If he wants to keep it, he's got the Wild Pyro into the Fiery War Axe. So there is a potential there to keep the sludge, since he just has the one copy in this warrior. But probably ends up throwing it. But I wouldn't be shocked to see it.
He's got 4 cards and the coin but go in second, so I wouldn't say no to keeping the sludge here. It's
not the craziest thing ever. It's not standard for sure, but it's not the craziest. Yeah. He does end up throwing it in the end, and we do see that Sam goes with the full mull and ends up with the lone champion again here.
Well
so
met.
That's going to be pretty strong against the Wild Pyro and the Fiery War Axe.
Yeah, so this is one reason why I wanted to keep it. He had the Wild Pyro and Fiery War Axe in hand already, so I think, keeping a bit of a greedier card there is okay when you've got a reasonably good start.
Do you like to play with fire?
He has a lot of options when he wants to use the coin here. So he does have the option here to kill this.
He does, yeah. Which I was wondering, would you actually go with the Divine Shield here to keep 2 1/1s? Because you saw, as soon as he lost the board last game, he was in a bit of a difficult situation. So maybe he's just going to try and grab the board early.
It is a little...
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a little awkward if he decides to take the trade and play the lone champ, because you could potentially coin with the Pyro to knock off the shield, but then you're losing your Pyro. So I think this is a reasonable line here. It is, I think, maybe just a little bit too cheeky to try to go the Potion and Archer line, or Dude and Archer.
Yeah, this definitely makes things a lot more awkward for Storm here. So,
now, if he wants, he can go with a coin Dragonsmith, but that is going to kind of screw up his curve a little bit, I think. So He probably just is going to go with the axe here and knock out the shield and stand pat with the.
Yeah, it does. Keeping the coin here when you've got 2 6 drops and not necessarily a 5 drop is a very good play.
This obviously we see is going to be answered. He could actually go kobold into archer if it misses. There is also a Light's Justice in Sam's deck, so I'm not sure if Storm was remembering that there is, these sorts of little pings that he has, both the kobold and the archer as well. So leaving it might, if he had remembered those, he might have maybe bumped in the 3-1 into the 2-4.
Yeah, it's definitely something he might have be a bit. I should have remembered that if he sees one of these cards play here, which is probably the right play to see one of these played.
Go for it.
I was going to say, obviously, if he just goes with the missiles now, he's got the option to follow up with the archer if it happens to miss. So I think I would just go with the 2-1 here over the 1-1 because you'd be forced just playing a. Oh, okay, he's just going to maybe trade and develop the minion.
Yeah, this is, it is a little bit weak to, an AoE, and I don't remember, does Storm's deck have a Warpath in it?
It has a Warpath, and it has the Blood Razor as well, but obviously he's got a weapon equipped, so he would...
From what we can see here, obviously the coin of the Darius was kind of what he was trying to do against the 2-4 that was on board, and gets another 2-4 to be able to trade in, so that's a very, very strong move there for Storm.
Yeah, so there's no way directly for Sam to actually deal with this minion unless he gets a bit lucky with these missiles.
Yeah. Oh,
which he just manages to do.
A little bit unlucky there, but he can still deal with it.
Yeah.
This is again what we see with this particular paladin is that these early turns are just a little bit on the top of stuff, and you're just trying to do whatever you can to get to that turn 6, get to that turn 7, and then throw down your big boys and your steeds.
So would you hit here to set up the death rattle effect?
Well, he obviously is choosing to do that. I don't know that I would. It is one of those questions with Blood Razor that I'm not sure that I'm totally an expert on. I think if I were doing it, well, the thing is though that you do have the War Axe in hand, so whenever you have that second weapon behind it, it's not unreasonable.
Reporting for duty.
See, this is Paladin. I don't like the Paladin decks where you tend to just drop minions and just kind of hope. I like having some way to be able to react to your opponent's board. If obviously you've got weapons, you've got AoEs or things like that. It's just a bit awkward when you're just dropping minions and hoping something sticks in it.
Exactly. Sam does have the double Ghostly Charger in the deck. He's been a little bit unfortunate enough to draw either of those.
We are starting to reach the later territory at the moment, and Sam does have some very premium late game cards with the Steed and the Silver Sword. So now we're in his territory, things might start changing over, but at the moment neither of these cards are in his hands, so he's still just fighting to keep the game going at the moment. It's still early days. There's I've just realised I haven't turned on the Discover mechanic. Yeah, it's no clear-cut winner at the moment, should I say?
I think I would probably want to go with a Wind Fury here.
So just in case people are curious, the third Steed was actually replaced with the Serenite Chain Gang. It's just I didn't get the substitution enough time before to be able to update the deck list with the correct substitution. So at the moment we've got the old deck list from the draft. So substitution is the Chain Gang. How long will this go on?
Easy for you to say. How long can Richie go on? Now, one card here is the Horde of Souls. Do you see what weapons he has left in the deck?
I can't see what he's got left in the deck at the moment, because I actually didn't start my deck tracker, so I will check that on now. to see what he's got remaining. To get the little cheat sheet on the go.
Yeah, not a problem. We're gonna see the dueling Volcanosaurs here. One with the poison, one with the Wind Fury. So you might see some sort of it feels like you want to use something like Potion of Heroism at some point here, but do you hit first? The thing is that, you know, Storm is at 18 health, and it's very tempting with the Avenging Wrath in hand to start trying to put in a little face damage, but I think Sam's still going to want to play for the board to some extent here.
So he's got the Molten Blade and Woodcutter's Axe available at the moment, but
Which path to
yeah.
choose?
Okay, so there are 2 weapons to draw. Okay, all right. Yeah, this is a tough turn here.
Act now.
Is there ever a world where you just like Potion Avenging Wrath and you like push all base?
Potion Avenging Wrath, push all base. Do you know what? I don't mind that. It obviously depends on when.
Really impressive line. But in this case, I do like the line that he's ending up with here, because the jelly is going to act nicely to block out the Volcanosaur. We can see that, of course, there is a Fire War Axe that he's going to be able to clear up things pretty nicely with, though. So it feels like Storm is maybe starting to stabilize. As much of a late game deck as Sam's Paladin is right now, he is actually in the aggro spot, it seems. And if Storm can just hold on a little bit longer here, he might be able to pull this thing back in his favor. He's actually gonna. Oh, he gets the Swift Messenger there as well. Yeah, this
does. Yeah,
has been surprisingly good for me. I wasn't too sold on it at first, but it's just gonna be a really good solid.
Yeah. So this poison minion is.
Oh, okay. He doesn't have Wind Fury on his. I got mixed up for that. I was like, did he miss a face?
No, he went for the plus HP and poison.
Volcanosaur.
Yeah.
I got debated there.
So obviously we've just seen a steed being drawn. So do you think he's just going to drop a steed down here against the poison minion?
It's probably going to be the Gravedigger into steed. This is where you start. Even though he would like to have triple steeds in the deck, he still does have 2 of them, and this is probably what he's going to have to rely on to start bringing him back in. Maybe set up some sort of Avenging Wrath coming up. But yeah, this does seem. He's also going to get a minion out of the Gravedigger once it dies. And we'll see what he hits on that. Could end up being pretty crucial as well. Again, the life total for Storm here is a little bit worrisome, especially with the the Avenging Wrath may end up being, if there's some way that he can do like a sneaky lethal here, because obviously you want to use your War Axe to. Well, you really would only be saving. I guess with the poison, you don't have to. I keep forgetting this is poison on the.
Yeah, you don't. He'll probably just trade in the poison here and maybe develop a taunt behind.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to kill the 2/6 unless he were to like Forge of Souls into the Arcanite Reaper. I think would be the only line. He did draw the War Axe or the Woodcutter's Axe, I guess. Draw from the Forge of Souls. Instead, he decides just to throw down a Ysera, I guess.
So we know, obviously, there's not a huge amount of reach in the Paladin deck. Obviously, you've got the 2 large endgame weapons and the Avenging Wrath. But apart from that, him to get an extra 8 damage in 1 turn is unlikely. So it's, you know, it's okay here. Ysera's a threat. It can be a game-winning card. So I can agree with this. I can see this.
And currently there is no no way to answer this Ysera. So if I'm Sam now, I've got to be thinking like, okay, how can I push enough face damage to get this game done with? The Violet Worm is going to be very tempting here. Especially if you can maybe set up some sort of Justice play coming up and get all your worms buffed. But the Violet Worm feels like it's going to be the trickiest for him to deal with. He does end up to go with the Stormwind Champion here. He knows he has to go one place right now.
Yeah, he's just hoping that the Avenging Wrath will finish it out the game at some point.
I was just thinking that the Worm, maybe he's worried about some sort of like a Warpath play. Is Storm Scryer, does he have an Execute in his deck?
He has an Execute as well, yeah. He doesn't have it, obviously, as you can see in hand at the moment, but he does have it in his deck.
I guess maybe he's thinking about some sort of execute. He has used the Blood Razor, so that's one AoE that's gone.
And there's the Primal Drake as well as another AoE, which is obviously.
I just know that when I'm getting low on life and my opponent throws down a Violet Worm, I'm like, oh no, I just lost. So that's why I sort of I like that as sort of the finishing threat there. But we'll see how this lands out. This is still a little bit tricky for him to clear here, especially without taking too much. He can't actually clear the.
Yeah, I think he would just trade in both minions here. You've got to protect your HP, especially seems you're going to be developing rather than armoring it. So I think the double trade here is absolutely fine, and you know. Oh, okay. Okay, so he's going to trade.
This is a little less. Oh, he decides to. Okay, I see. He wants to keep the 2/3 alive.
Yeah, I think he's gone with this line of play to start maybe putting pressure himself, because obviously if he kills the 4/2, he gets the 2/2 out. So.
Well,
but there's just a little bit, I guess, on board.
Yeah.
well played.
Okay, so he was able to hold on. It ended up being an interesting switch of roles there. You know, as the game went along, it started being like, wait a second, Sam is actually in the aggro position here, and he was able to finally push through. It looked like Storm was going to be close to stabilizing, but I think he got a little bit unlucky there with the. If he had pulled maybe, well, it's tough to say. If he had gotten the Ysera Awakens, he would have maybe been close to killing himself as well with the Avenging Wrath there in hand. So, yeah. Interesting game.
Yeah, it was close. It felt like Storm was going to potentially be able to steal it. It felt like Sam was just on the edge of just running out of a juice to close the game, and that Storm was going to be able to stabilize. But, you know, Sam identified, as you said, he was the aggressive player, even though his deck is actually quite heavy, and managed to finish.
Yeah. And that was the big question mark for me, was how is this Paladin deck going to perform? And I guess, you know, it ended up going 11 on the when it was actually played in Arena, and it does end up coming away with the win here. So, you know, Sam is in a very good spot here to close the series out.
Yep, he's just got his Warlock left to play. I'm going to find out what, obviously, Storm is going to decide to have as his final deck.
Yep. And just as a reminder for those that are, I see some people maybe asking about the format. As you can see from the command and chat, that it is a best of 5. They're taking arena decks that they drafted throughout the week, and when they do end up with 3 or more of a card, they end up substituting in a card that on the Lightforge tier list is equal or lesser value. So if you end up with 3 steeds, you just look on the tier list on Lightforge and say, you know, what's equal to steed or what's a little bit less than steed. You can't bump it up, so you can't go up to, like, you know, a silver sword level and grab one of those instead. But he did decide to go with a Serenite Chain Gang in place of the 3rd steed. And so they draft the decks during the week. This time is a little bit of a unique setup. We're going forward, or as we had with the first matchup between Kellen and Tex a couple weeks ago. Both players are normally not going to know anything about the other's deck lists. In this case, it's a little bit of a unique situation where we were short on time, and because Sam and Storm on their channel of Murlocs and Men, which you should definitely give a follow, especially if you're into co-op arena play, definitely check them out. They have a great duo/trio of guys that are on there doing the co-op action, and so they ended up just drafting these decks together and then sort of divvied them up later with like sort of like coin flips and grouping decks together type of deal. So yeah, that's kind of how the format is set up.
Yeah, so Storm has actually decided to switch to his Warlock as well. So again, it's going to be another mirror match.
So this is the first Warlock we've seen, right?
This is, yeah. So obviously the remaining deck for Sam is Warlock, and Storm has decided to play his Warlock to see maybe if he can bring it to a final, you know, winner-takes-all series. But obviously if Storm is unsuccessful with his Warlock here, Sam will take it on a 3-1 basis. So we're going to get into this match very shortly now. Players are just literally queuing up their decks.
Yeah, looking at some of the highlights here. Again, Storm has, I think, the earlier curve in his Warlock In Sam's Warlock, I think he only has the Mad Bomber on 2. He does have a Curse of Weakness, and as we saw last time with Tex, that the Curse of Weakness can actually come in very clutch, so we'll see how that plays out. Sam does have, or I should say Storm does have, double Despicable Dreadlord in his, and I think this is maybe Warlock's best card at the moment. Normally against Paladins, Dreadlord is like, you might even just end up keeping a Dreadlord in hand if you only have one.
Shall be mine.
So we've got the players actually queued in now and the mulligan up and going. So we can see Storm here, who's already hit a 2-drop and a 3-drop, both, you know, quite nice statted minions. So he might even just full keep here with the 4-drop as well, because he doesn't actually have a 1-drop he can mulligan for.
Yeah, the Snapjaw was actually an interesting pick at the end of the draft. They actually took it over a Wax Elemental, which is not too crazy. I just happen to be a little bit of a fan of Wax Elemental this expansion. I have found it in so many spots to be a key way to sort of block the opponent from either lethal or just making the good trades that they want. It's so annoying. You drop this down when they've got a Violet Worm on board. It's like, oh, it's almost like double Gastropod. Like if Gastropod had Divine Shield, it doesn't kill the worm, obviously, but just a fun little thing that might have been fun to see.
So, would you ever just coin out the 3-drop here, and then next turn you could follow up with the Shadow Bolt? So obviously, if he coins out the 3-drop here and then Storm just goes face, then next turn Sam could Shadow Bolt the Taunt and maybe trade his 3-drop into whatever minion he plays.
Yeah, that's a very, very reasonable line. It's always tempting to try to save the coin for the Phoenix, but given how this board is shaping up right now, the Phoenix is not in a spot where it's going to do anything just yet. So yeah, Sam does have a Hellfire in the deck. He does, but it looks like the Shadow Bolt is going to come in very nicely there. He also has one Dreadlord that he can draw into for area if he does need it. He also does a double Steel Defender for some additional late game. But right now, it's just sort of the real strong curve here that Storm is just sort of saying, hey, you got an answer to stuff? I'm going to keep throwing stuff on the board.
Yeah, Sam's actually got a pretty good curve himself, though, and obviously with this Phoenix now, he's going to have the board as much as
yeah,
Storm does.
The Witchwood, it's looking like the Witchwood Grizzly is probably going to come down as a 3/8. We are going to probably see the Dreadlord being played here, too. I think he might push... I'd be tempted to push the 5-face here. But protecting your Dreadlord is pretty nice as well, so, you know... It's a tough call on whether you make this trade.
It is tough because obviously pressuring a Warlock, you know, can then reduce
but
the option of them to be able to draw down the line.
He makes the correct line.
Yeah, faces the blades. So yeah, and inevitably Sam would make the trade back most of the time, you know, so it's a way of just kind of guaranteeing the 5 damage and still getting the trade technically done the turn after by the other player who wants to remove that 5 damage minion off the board. So what do you think he would develop here? Do you feel that he feels the Dreadlord is a threat and wants to develop a poison that will contest it rather than protect his face?
I saw him thinking about this Gloom Eater, and it actually does kind of make sense because, you know, the Dreadlord can't, you know, make a trade into it and then do the Terror Power and he's dead. So this is actually... Gloom Eater is one of these cards that I had underestimated at first, but a lot of board states, it just ends up being very, very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, it's all the poison minions are very strong cards
right?
at the moment. You know, it's like, as you can see here, he doesn't have to attack, so he just holds off and develops his own poison taunt, which...
The OG small annoying poison taunt, the Gastropod.
So yeah, it's just a battle of the taunts at the moment. Poison taunt, should I say, at the minute. And it looks like the snail might be winning this little fight here.
Yeah, because he's going to need some sort of, like, you know, Mad Bomber RNG if he wants to get through. But then, yeah, that's a really awkward spot here for Sam.
It is, yeah. This Dreadlord is a very annoying card when it can't be dealt with because it's just slowly chipping away.
I was going to say, I really liked how they drafted Storm's Warlock, because there were the first Despicable Dreadlord was actually up against, I think, a Voidlord and a Kobold Librarian at the time.
Okay.
And those are all really, really premium cards. A lot of people might say, oh, snap Voidlord, but the Dreadlord is just so useful in this meta. Even if it's not against Paladin, it's like one of these cards that I almost can't get enough of. And same thing later, there was a Kobold Librarian and a Siphon Soul. They went with the second Dreadlord. I think those were both really strong picks.
And he's just drawn up the Dreadlord here now. Yeah, I did actually look at that draft myself, and I was a bit
it's
surprised.
not going to be that great in this spot.
No, of course. Ooh, it's a shame he didn't draw the other way, because there's an option to harvest Golem and sacrifice.
I know, that would have been so much tempo. Yeah. That would have pretty much... The game is already really in Storm's favor here, but especially with the one that's going to be coming down. But he just says, hey, more Dreadlord, more better. Don't have anything right now to deal with this. So he will be able to trade into one of these. This is interesting. Curse of Weakness, does it do anything here? He can only cast 3 times, so he would be able to preserve a Bone Drake, but it's probably better to just like trade and then, you know, obviously see what dragon you get, but then something like Bomber into Grizzly, I think.
So many possibilities.
Because the Grizzly is, he wouldn't be able to get through the Grizzly on board, even with the Dreadlord proc.
No, it is a consideration. I really like the curse as well. I know he's gonna...
I just don't know that it does enough just yet, because you are preserving a, you know, you're leaving a 6/2 on board that has no taunt. So yes, it does save you face damage for the next turn, but yeah, I mean the curse would be not total. The thing is that, well, yeah, no, it wouldn't have been the worst play ever. I think he's probably just thinking he wants to get an extra proc out of it. It's always kind of awkward playing the Echo cards on the odd turns.
Yeah, I do know what you mean, and that's one thing with the Echo cards is, you know, ideally you want to get them to Echo, but sometimes you've just got to give them up as a single target. I think leaving a 6/2 and the Grizzly on board against a 4/5 and a 2/7, which
unfortunately, Dragonling mechanic is not a dragon, so that will not trigger the Dustbreaker. Unfortunately, here, not that would really do all that much. I don't know what Sam can do to bring this back. He could quadruple cast Curse of Weakness just to kind of stay alive for a turn, but then what is he? That's not doing him anything. So he's probably going to end up going with the Now the Grizzly, of course, because he held it, is going to be a little bit bigger, which is nice. And from what we can see here, he's not going to be able to get through this turn. So depending on what he draws, ooh, does the Shadow Flame do it? Well, he obviously wouldn't be able to get through for lethal.
No,
it's probably not. It's probably just going to be drop a Worm and say, I'll deal with your taunt next turn. Oh, he's going to go with the Elune here. Interesting. So you would tap first in that case, right?
You would guess, if he's dropping the Loon, you would guess he would tap first.
What would be the... Yeah, I was going to say...
He's got the Black Knight he could hit, which would remove the taunt straight out there.
There is the Black Knight. I forgot about the Black Knight.
Which would give him lethal straight there. You've also got a Doom Guard. I don't know if that would have been lethal. 5, 9, no. Awkward stat to get the lethal there. But
you just slam the Violet Worm, because it's like... What do you do about it? You can't do anything. There's really the only cards that really deal with Worm are Sap and Psychic Scream. Other than that, it's one of those cards that just seals the game out. It's almost like a Silver Sword. It's not quite as strong as Silver Sword, obviously, but I just know whenever my opponent plays a Worm, I am sitting there, you know.
Yeah, you're a little bit worried.
I never throw anything around the room. I would never do that over a children's card game, but I'm just saying that potentially could happen for some people.
Yeah, against certain classes, obviously they have answers with it. As you mentioned, Priest can obviously Psychic Scream and just get it back off the board. Mage can obviously Polymorph it. Paladin can Shrink it. But classes like Warlock that don't really have an answer.
I did forget about Polymorph. Yes, Polymorph is the thing as well. Sure.
It's a bit awkward.
But even Polymorph is not quite as common, because it ends up in the pack with Flame Strike and Fireball a lot of the time. And a lot of people end up picking that Flame Strike first. Yeah, so this is, you know, Sam sitting here thinking like, okay, which way, how shall I choose to, you know, stave off my death maybe for one turn?
Well, he does have a Defile in the deck as well, so this might delay
you know. Sure. So this is the out that he's looking for. He is looking for this. I did forget about the Defile. I was thinking for some reason that Storm Scryer had the Defile.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult when both players are playing very similar.
So if he gets a Defile here, he's actually just going to use a Shadow.
Yeah, so this is a very nice wipe.
Even at this point, yeah. Yep. Hellfire is not going to be good enough. Hellfire into Defile. That's probably what he has to get here.
Yeah, so 7, 5.
Oh, he can tap again. He can tap one more time. Oh, he missed the double tap. Oh,
no, unfortunate.
But that does mean that we end up with a game 5.
It does indeed. So we've got Warlock versus Warrior, if I remember right. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting final match.
Both series so far going to game 5, so we're definitely getting our money's worth here.
Yeah, I'm liking it. We haven't had any 3-0s at the moment, and the series ending rather quickly. We're getting the best of the 5 all the time. So yeah, we've got a 2-2 going again, and we've got Warlock v Warrior. So who do you think is going to be favoured? Would you have an idea who you think would win this? Do you feel the Warrior's going to win? Because
that's what I'm trying to figure out here, because in both of the games Storm I think has lost both of his games with Warrior. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Unfortunately, he hasn't managed to grab a win with that yet. Each time he switched, he has.
It's just drawn awkwardly enough in each case, I think. Like, he's ended up with a Molten Blade both times where, I mean, the other one, in the second game, the Molten Blade he drew kind of at the end, but it was kind of a bad top deck to have at the time, which is one of the drawbacks of Molten Blade. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know for sure. I don't think the deck should be. It feels like a solid curve. It's got a lot of good minions in it. It's got the double War Axe and the Blood Razor. I think maybe he's just been a little bit unlucky with his draws. I think I still want to give the nod to Storm here, assuming his deck doesn't backfire on him too badly with the draws here. I think he probably has a little bit of the edge.
Yeah. My instinct was the Warrior as well, because he does have a few AoEs with the weapon. Control early game could certainly seal it out, but you did see that the Warlock Sam did have quite a good start at the beginning, but what was just he struggled with was the Dreadlord, which was the AoE every turn, the 4/5 body.
Yeah, when you throw down those double Dreadlords, it's just really, really tough to deal with. But there were also some other awkward turns in the mid to early game there that I think in general Storm's deck should be able to go a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah, so both players are about to queue their final decks now, which is obviously the Warlock Warrior we've been discussing. Obviously, it can go either way, so it'll be interesting to see who takes this and who's going to have the bragging rights of Murlocs and Men channel, being the first person to win a best of 5 against each other. So, yeah, exciting.
So Sam is going first here, so we obviously know that means he's always going to win. And he has a 1-drop going first, so that's like a complete auto win. Do you ever keep the Stonehill Defender here? Also, with Stormscryer, he has the Spellstone. You probably, being the only copy, I think you probably keep the Pixie and the Spellstone, right?
Yeah, I would agree with those pet keeps. Oh, he chucks away the Spellstone.
Yeah. So that's very interesting, because now he ended up with the Forge of Souls, and if he had kept that Spellstone there, I think I don't know. It's one of those things. Obviously, with Collins and Shady, they really like to keep that Spellstone. I think in the 3 Spellstone decks, I can understand throwing it, but I would strongly consider keeping it as it being the only copy.
The Soul one, exactly.
But again, he might feel like the way that this deck goes is it just needs to pressure the Warlock early, and he doesn't necessarily have to hit that Spellstone at the end of the game.
So many possibilities.
I'm not sure what he is considering here. I think this is a fairly easy bet.
Speak your piece.
What would be the thought there of holding the veteran? I'm not sure.
I guess if you're worried about a weapon or anything like that, but or that there is a wasp. There is a wasp in the deck as well.
Oh, right,
so.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, I don't think you're going to play around a wasp in that situation. At least I wouldn't. I think you're more than happy to throw down the 1-drop here. It is going to end up being a little bit countered, and as we see with just the Mad Bomber in the deck, that tap on turn 2 is going to be happening a lot of the time.
Exactly, yeah. And when you know you're going to be tapping, you wipe Warner Minion here to contest a potential card that Storm was going to be playing. But yeah, unfortunately, it is just a tap. So would you go and develop the weapon here, right? You wouldn't just trade the shield?
Yeah.
Or would you, the play I was going to ask, or would you just trade in the 1/1 and develop the Force of Souls, you know, thin out your deck, draw another 2 cards?
The only time that I would consider casting Forge of Souls on curve is if I don't have anything already, and I know that I'm going to be drawing. If I have like triple Blood Razor in the deck, and I know I'm going to be getting the Blood Razor, but there, because you have the weapon and then you have a 3-drop to follow it up, I'm totally fine with the weapon. I'm not with the Woodcutter's Axe. I really am not looking to get that Death Rattle proc. I could care less if I get it off, unless I have like so many Rush Minions in my deck. But most of the time, you know, it's going to be an Argent Lance, and an Argent Lance, even when it didn't win the Joust, was just fine. It was a 2/2 weapon, and it was a great weapon.
What fools these mortals be!
So we see that he ends up taking a Primordial Drake from the Stonehill, and this is obviously the strength of Stonehill, is that it gives you access to these crazy broken cards.
Crazy.
I'm sure we're going to see at some point here where the Primordial is going to... Sam is hoping that this is going to be one of those cards that's going to seal the game out for him.
Yeah, and there is a chance it does it, you know, it's... you know, if it hits the Death Rattle on the Worm, that can be a big swing as well, or just finishing off minions that, you know, Sam might be struggling to deal with anyway. It's a crazy card, so we'll definitely see if that Drake swings the game. But, you know, Storm has a Drake himself, so that's something we have to consider as well. So would you just see him drop in the... what is it called? The Cursed Disciple here right now?
The problem with the Disciple is that what's going to happen here is, well, you know, he actually doesn't have to bump the shield. I was thinking that he was going to bump the shield off, but he could just go face with the Stonehill and play. But it's just awkward with the weapon and the 1-attack guy. So he is ending up going for the Pixie, it looks like, which I kind of like this play better. First Disciple is obviously very, very strong, but it's a lot weaker when it has... Okay, so he was thinking of the bump, because the problem with this, if he had gone with the Cursed Disciple here, the 3/4 goes back into the 1/3, and then the 1/1 and the weapon kill off the Disciple, and then his board is clear. So so that's why if he's going to bump off the shield, I was thinking he could go face with the Stonehill and kind of prevent that, and that would leave a Cursed Disciple one of the bodies on the board at least. But it is one of those spots where Disciple is just a little bit on the...
Yeah, so we just see the
wood on this Swift Messenger, though. This is where... Yeah, wow, that's really, really huge swing, man. Holy crap.
Very, very good, you know, just even being left with the 4/4 body at the end.
That is so strong. That's really, really putting Storm in a strong position here. Is he thinking about... He's thinking about maybe like Dragonling and the Reveler, or actually he's just gonna play. Yeah, Disciple. I mean, seems the best to contest this sort of a board.
Yeah, the 1/1.
You don't need the 1/1 right now. Like
no.
It's pretty much a dead card at the moment. Maybe when you play the Dragonling mechanic, it can leave the 2/1. But that's probably about it. So this Arathi Weaponsmith, I think they could have picked a Blood Razor, and again, that's a little bit of a draft philosophy difference that I prefer the Blood Razor. I think in this case, obviously the Blood Razor would have been a little bit better, because we would have. Well, I guess it's about even though, because the Arathi leaves the 3/3 body behind, so it's maybe
it's very similar. What I was actually considering here, I don't know if you agree or not, but I was considering obviously just popping the Death Rattle, but then pushing the minion's face, because if you don't really put much damage onto the Warlock, you know, at points they're gonna just be able to tap away if they stabilize, and you know, you can be out of resources. So what's your thought about
I like the way you think, Rich.
You know me, Warrior Face is definitely.
No, but that is, and like you said, it's against a Warlock, and that is something that's a very, very strong consideration when it's that kind of a minion. That would have been definitely worth beating. Again, at this point, you know, Sam's best hope is to draw into one of these AoEs. He's got a Defile left, he's got a Hellfire, and he's got a Despicable Dreadlord, and I think he's going to need at least one of those. He does have the Drake coming down in a couple turns, and, you know, if he's somehow able to keep Storm from pushing too much damage, the thing is, once he gets past this Grizzly, he's going to be going in for a lot of face damage.
See, this is where it's a little bit annoying for the warrior. You know, he has to hit the big taunt, which means he's not hitting damage face, and he's starting to go low himself. And now
the 1/1 here is surprisingly annoying though, because it is able to contest the 4/1. I didn't see that at first.
No, I didn't notice until the trades were made, but it worked out very well.
This second Stonehill Defender top deck is really, really good. This is going to, this might be exactly what he needs, because he just needed, I think, one more turn to stall out before he gets down the Drake. So I think what I would want to see here is the Stonehill and the Dragonling mechanic, because I think that sets up the Drake, the Primordial, a little bit better. It allows you to trade in the 2/1 back into the Bone Drake after it kills the Stonehill Defender, but maybe he's thinking that the cycle is just a little... Oh, he's actually not even going to play the Stonehill. Oh, wow, interesting. So he is okay with taking the 6 face hit. Huh. I would be very worried about face damage.
And there's also the risk of Warpath as well. You know, we know it's in the deck, and that would be
Warpath is there too. I don't know that I would be able to
Pyro.
play around it at this point. It's maybe not a luxury we can afford to play around Warpath, but when you have a Primordial Drake coming up, I don't know.
Well, as you were saying, he develops a Stonehill, which soaks damage. It also gets another taunt in his hand, which makes him decide how he can play later on. And he develops a 2/4 and 2/1/1s behind it. You know, you could even argue you play the 5/1 instead of the Dragonling mechanic. But yeah, it's interesting.
And it just seemed like it was a really nice setup for the Drake. Rotten Apple Bomb is pretty tempting here. The healing is going to be pretty nice.
So would you double trade and drop the taunt? Do you think that's what he's going to do? Oh, he's pressuring himself. That's fair enough.
Yeah, this is what we've seen in each of these games that this warrior deck has lost, is that with all these weapons, like, he's slowly but surely losing his life as a resource. And yeah, this is a very, very good setup here by Sam. I did not see this as a potential swing. So this is what he was thinking of. I was too, I think, tunneled in on the Drake, and I wasn't looking at the counter push. And so this is ending up paying off really well here. He's setting up a high attack and then to lay down the Stonehill plus another taunt to set up the swing on the lethal. The 5/9 taunt here is a little bit tricky to deal with. He can get through. Does he have? He's very close to lethal, but he's 2 off, I think, with the... Oh, he's actually 3 off because it's 9 health on that. So he can Shadow Bolt and then put in the 5/1, and then 5. He has 5 damage left over. So does he start with a Dark Possession here?
So many
You could get Doomguard, right? It's any demon,
Dreadlord would also be a nice proc to get. Dreadlord would be really, really nice to clear off the Bone Drake and the 3/2. So I do think you probably want to go for the Dark Possession.
So yeah, if you are going to be obviously having the mana spare because you're going to be playing the Shadow Bolt and Dragon mechanic, it does make sense, unless you want to tap. But there's no real tap he could go into that would make a difference. Yeah, he could just win with this play right now.
When you can't get the Dreadlord, you go with the Dreadlord.
Yeah. So if he does feel under pressure himself,
at this point, I'm going to be very well. So the 1/1 I think always kills the 6/1. Yeah, I'm okay pushing the 4th base because now you're at a spot where he's only got the Phoenix on board, and I think this is a very fine setup play.
So he doesn't have a way. Oh, well, actually, Hero Power takes him out of range right at this point in time, but.
Yeah, what is going to be his line here? Can he afford to kill something with an axe? He might have to.
Yeah, so would you play the Ebon Dragon, bringing the axe down by 1 to 1, so 5 armor? Can't develop anything else.
Still a little bit. Yeah, it's still a little bit awkward. You might. Oh
yeah.
No! That's not a dragon.
No, yeah.
No. Oh no! I wasn't even thinking this
Unfortunate.
He wanted to play the dragons. Oh, the Dragon Slayer kills his own dragon. Oh no! Storm did not want to
just use the weapon here, and he's still alive with 2 HP, but it's not looking great.
Oh, that is very, very unfortunate. Yeah. He is still in a rough spot regardless, but oh, that is really, really. I saw him pointed at the little Dragonling too, and it's like, no, that's not a dragon. Oh my gosh. And now this Void Lord comes down, and it's not going to put a ton of pressure, but I think it is still enough to threaten the lethal. He can armor up, but that's not going to quite be enough.
Yeah, he doesn't have a way of dealing
And
with
this is looking like Sam is going to be able to seal this out.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it looks like, you know, Storm just couldn't get the win with the Warrior. So he's just going to finish it off by...
He's going to Sudoku his own guy. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So in the end, what we saw with this Warrior deck is, yeah, it had a lot of weapons, but it didn't have enough. It didn't have enough survivability. Like it needed like more taunts or some sort of armor gain or heals, and because he was always just getting a little bit too low through the using of those weapons. And even though he got that early pressure with the Death Rattle proc from the Woodcutter's Axe onto the Swift Messenger, it looked like he was in that really strong spot. But then I think Sam had that key play, which we were sort of scratching our heads about because I was looking at the setup with the Primordial Drake, but he laid down the Cursed Disciple and the Jungle Panther, and he was looking to counter-strike. He was looking to just go face on the other guy and say, hey, I'm going to have enough taunts here. You're not going to be able to get behind... you're not going to get through. I'm just going to counter push toward you.
And it was very good. He spotted that, obviously being the aggressive class when you wouldn't necessarily think him being the aggressive class as the Paladin as well, you know. So both times he went aggressive, where I myself didn't necessarily know that aggression would have sealed the win there, and he spotted that quite well and finished off 2 games in a line of play that I wouldn't have taken. So it was very well played by Sam. So we're going to actually get them both in here now to talk. So I'm going to drag them in to the channel, and we're going to get both of these players in. Ooh. So here they are now.
Hey guys.
How are you both?
Hey. Very well, thank you.
Yeah, so congratulations, Sam, on your win there. It was a close series.
It was really, really close. Really good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate, Storm, that you just couldn't get a win with that Warrior. Obviously, 3 attempts, and unfortunately, yeah, all times.
I mean, I had to play. I had to play that Warrior a bit weird, like different than I would usually play it in Arena, because I knew in every matchup, like, maybe except for the Warlock one, that my Warrior is the weaker deck. So I had to take more risks and make the play to win plays instead of the safer. I don't lose by doing this play now, but I fall too far behind that I can't catch up. That's something you usually don't know when you queue into a random deck in Arena, that your opponent has the stronger deck.
Yeah, well, that's a way that, not necessarily as much these days, but Warrior definitely had to do that in pre-10.4. You just had to take a chance and, you know, be like, well, if this class that is better than me has this card, I lose, you know, and if they don't, I can win. But yeah, I can definitely see that light. Was there any particular plays that stood out to you where you were like, it's a risky play, but I've got to do it, and I'm either going to win or lose from this play?
I think like the dropping the Ysera. I played Ysera with the thought in mind, like I have to get the bounce every turn to keep him off the board. And maybe during the last match when I played the Forge of Souls, I was aiming to get the Blood Razor and immediately override it to get rid of those pesky 5/1s and the stealth 4/2. I guess when I draw that instead of double War Axe, the rest of the game becomes a totally different story.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense.
Also, I completely screwed myself on the last turn there, where
you were already in a rough spot. But then we saw you pointing at the Dragon Leaf. That was the
yeah. Not only was that a mech, I also played my dragon first, so I couldn't play.
We were joking about the fact that at one point Sam ended up with a Duskbreaker. I think it was off a Bone Drake or something, I don't remember, but he drew the Dragonling mechanic the next turn, and we were joking that unfortunately that Dragonling mechanic is not a dragon. It will not trigger the Duskbreaker.
I did the same. I hovered it as soon as I drew it. I'd sort of just
why are you not a dragon?
I need this block. And then it was just a taunt. You've got no dragons. This is almost one, but not quite.
Yeah,
it would have been
also
funny to see you snatch grab
in the Paladin matchup. Like I played that match completely different than I normally would have. Like way more aggressive, not playing around Consecration or a 2 damage AoE, because I think it was Avenging Wrath or something like
That's
that was
correct,
the
yeah.
only AoE-ish card he had in deck. Like usually I probably wouldn't go below 2 health with so many minions against the Paladin, but I knew his win condition is the steeds and the summoner and stuff, so I had to get him off the board at every cost. So yeah, maybe
well,
that's a game I would have played a bit different and less
you
aggressive.
nearly won that one. That one was definitely, I feel, your closest win as the
I
warrior.
did win it.
You know.
Yeah, yeah.
The warrior one, was it?
No, the Paladin versus Paladin.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were on about when you were the warrior versus his paladin, where you were very, very close to snatching the win there. But yeah, as you mean, I sorry. Yeah, that was just me mishearing there. Yeah. Okay, but
so
yeah.
Sam, so I wanted to ask, and Storm, you can comment on this as well. I wanted to ask about your paladin deck. This was the one that was most interesting to me in the draft because you went with the Spiteful Summoner over Equality on the very first pick, which ended up steering the draft in a very different direction. And I also noticed that you guys were very, keen on skipping 2/3s. You were not really concerned about, well, we're just going to hero power on 2, and we're going to take a worm over a Tuskar Lake. We're going to take another worm over a Drygulch Jailer. We're going to take a charger over a Plated Field. Talk to us a little bit about what you guys were thinking there during that draft.
Yeah, it was a bit of an experimental draft. We sort of had a bit of fun with it. I think it was literally just after the Lightforge were advocating sort of having a bit of a play with your synergy picks early. I'm not sure if you listened to it, but they were sort of saying, take your more synergistic cards because all the buckets are a relative power level. You can always, you don't lose out necessarily picking those first. So we weren't sure what we thought of that, but we thought, let's give it a shot. We'll take the Spiteful Summoner. And we did say there'll be cards like you take Humility quite often, Potent Heroism, Equality, Lost in the Jungle, all of those cards, So it was fairly experimental, but it worked out. So
the Storm said the deck went 11 on
Yeah, the 2/3s thing, that's something that, again, we've been experimenting a bit about. So in your previous meta, you could pretty much just throw away all 2s, start on 3s. And we really, really pushed that. We had a lot of success with it. So we sort of are still playing with that in this meta, seeing how it works. And it does seem to work. So you're seeing the Pixie quite often. There's a couple of 3/4s. The Amalgams are 3/4.
there as well,
Yep. So they eat your 2/3s. You also... your 4/3s are also eating the 2/3s. So quite often the 2/3 early game might do something, but it might well not do enough. And late game, it definitely doesn't do enough. So we like to aim for stuff like your Gastropod on 2s, your cards with cantrips, stuff like that. So we do like 2-drops, but we don't want to invest too much because later game, they become a very low quality draw.
Yeah. Overall, I think we would pick more 2s if we would have gotten offered more 3/2s. But as Sam said, the 2/3s gets eaten by basically every 3-drop, so you accomplish nothing on the board with just throwing a 2/3 out there. Maybe get into face damage while your opponent hero powers, then drops a 3/3, a 3/4, or 4/3, just eats your 2-drop, and you're even again.
Yeah,
the
that
other thing
definitely makes sense.
Go on, sorry.
No, sorry, that I was just agreeing. Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's it just feels like, for example, the game you lost with your first Paladin was because you just pretty much got taken off the board and you couldn't get back on. I know that's pretty much a weakness to Paladin all, but it was quite like maybe if you had some of that early game there to help out, you would have not struggled so much. Do you get me?
This is true. Yeah, it definitely does help. Although if you sort of look at the turns we end the game on, I don't feel it's that much slower. Like quite often it was turn 7, turn 8. It was like deep in end game, threatened lethal, even though we skipped the 2s. So yeah, I think we still got to do a bit more playing around with it. But it's definitely an interest. It makes it quite fun to play and draft, sort of in a bit of a weird, different style. So just totally ignoring one mana slot.
I just know that in Paladin, from what I've had success with, is just to go ham on 1s, 2s, and 3s, throw in a couple 4s and 5s, and then you got your steeds and your divine favors and your silver swords and maybe you throw in a divine favor or a cult master to kind of help you cycle on through potion of heroism, those sorts of things. So when I was seeing this, it was just not any sort of archetype that I had seen work for Paladin yet in the meta. So it was really interesting to see how you guys thought through this.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to hear that you went 11 with it because. We all know
something
Paladins.
to try, something to give a shot. Next time I draft Paladin.
Yeah. As you said earlier, though, 3 steeds, you know, it makes it a little bit
It's
difficult.
hard to say. It's hard to say that it's a bad paladin deck if it has 3 steeds. So, even if you're
Also, a
service
summoner
little-
with pretty much guaranteed pulling a 6-drop.
That's
you know?
true.
Yeah, you had the summoner into the coffin crash for that one game, and unfortunately, you were too far behind at that point. But it ended up pulling the worm at least at the end that you got. So
Yeah, that was an interesting turn. I can't remember what did I play instead? Because I wanted to. That was it. I had the coffin crasher, and it was between that and the spiteful summoner, and that was a really tough.
oh, that's
turn.
what happened in that game. Oh, okay. For some reason, I was thinking you got the coffin crasher from the summoner.
I think I got the coffin crasher from the.
Death Rattle
Oh,
Minion, wasn't it?
from the Grave
Yes.
Digger. Okay,
Yes,
okay.
That
yeah.
was it.
You've got the
Yeah,
4/5
I was having
Cabal
some
Priest.
technical difficulties, so yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, because it was an interesting turn where I really wanted to get the worm to be active the next turn, but I felt like I needed to be a little bit wider because he was already pushing me off the board, and we all know once you're off the board as Paladin, it's an absolute nightmare again.
Oh, look, we're getting compliments on chat. How young we look. Chat says we look like 20. I'm actually 33 in that picture.
Blimey, fair enough.
Another thing I wanted to ask about in your warrior drafts, I noticed that you guys, first of all, you ended up going with a Molten Blade, and I think that was Storm that was advocating.
Yeah, Sam absolutely hated me for that.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about your thoughts on Molten Blade there? Because I have had success with Molten Blade in the past. I had one deck that had 3 of them, and that actually worked out because then you actually could choose. You had a better chance of getting the one that you wanted that turn. But one of them can sometimes be a little bit awkward.
It might have been like a bit of an impulsive pick because the day before I got obliterated by a molten blade turning into the what's it called, the twig of the world's tree.
Oh yeah.
And then
Oh,
immediately overriding it, giving my opponent a 15 mana turn on turn 5 or something like that.
That'll be a pretty good turn most of the time.
Yeah, but also with like the high offering rate on the Forge of Souls, you can actually, in my opinion, make the Molten Blade work. Or it's make sure you don't get the bad top deck by just
Also,
drawing it.
That's a good
early.
point. I've never thought of that synergy with the Forge of Souls and the Molten Blade, so you don't get the bad top deck. Yeah, that does make sense. Like I love Warrior myself, and I've only ever picked Molten Blade as a meme, but yeah, it's that's definitely.
Also,
a
the
good
deck
synergy.
had an execute, so in the worst case, it's just a 1 mana activator for your execute and dealing some face damage.
Talk a little bit about also the thoughts between the different weapons in Warrior. I noticed there were a couple of times where you guys passed on Blood Razor in favor of, I think one time was a Gore Howl and the other time was on a Wrathy Weaponsmith. What are your thoughts in this meta so far between, because I found Blood Razor to be really, really strong, obviously with a lot of Paladins, and it's felt to me like Gore Howl is maybe a little bit not as strong as it was in previous metas, but what are your thoughts on that?
Sam, do you want to go first, or should
I'll
I?
let you go first, being that I generally fairly large advocate for Blood Razor, and you fairly opposite.
Okay, so a bit to some degree, like the specific meta of me facing Sam went into the decision. Like
I was wondering about that. Sure, that's
Yeah.
a little bit of a different. It's going to be in the back of your mind as you're drafting. For sure.
yeah, like I think on the one warrior deck that was the one with the 2 dragons, which was very board centric and a lot of low health minions in its deck. So you obviously don't want
Yeah,
too
you were
many
talking
blood
about the
razors and
anti-synergy with the
whirlwinds
blood razors, that's true.
stuff there. And with the other deck, we already had the Forge of Souls at the point where we skipped the second blood razor and picked the Wrathy Weaponsmith over it. So I felt like I would dilute the Forge of Souls as as what weapons it draws, and I would have preferred, like in most matches, you want a body and a weapon on turn 4, and not necessarily the AoE from the Blood Razor. So it was like having the diversity in the deck between, okay, I have a 4 mana weapon that does an AoE, but I also have the 4 mana tempo weapon that comes with a 3/3 body.
I remember deliberating a lot over that pick with the Arathi on the Blood Razor, and yeah, it was really, really tight. I think it was just the body which pushed it over the edge.
Because we also were lacking four drops at that point.
It was the turn 4 tempo play that we wanted,
Yeah.
so I think that pushed it there. But generally, I think we would have probably leaned towards a Blood Razor.
Yeah, no,
in
I
like
can see
for arena meta with paladins being all over the place. In general, I think I'm more happy with double Blood Razor than Blood Razor and Arathi. But in this specific case, preparing for knowing what we will face, I think it was the decision to go with the Arathi.
Yeah, the Blood Razor, it's, I definitely see why you chose the Arathi Weaponsmith, but just, a Blood Razor, having two of them means you're guaranteed to, more likely to hit the one when you need it, where with your line of play, for example, you choose one of that type and one of that type, and then you might draw the Arathi when you want the Blood Razor, and you draw the Blood Razor when you want the Arathi, and you just can potentially hit that awkward situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see why you take it, and it was just
also
we were curious
with the
why.
Forge of Souls, you almost never want to draw double Blood Razor from a Forge of Souls.
Yeah, no,
in
that's
the late
very
game.
true as well. Yeah, I can see that. So
Because the weapon on its own has so little damage, and you don't want to override it for the triple AOE and spending 8 mana, or on the turn of Forge of Souls like 10 mana on Forge double Blood Razor to get a 3 mana AOE.
Yeah, I can see that. If you had a Berserker, it might be different because then you can get a massive one. But yeah, I can definitely, I can see why you did choose it.
And the other one was like why we picked the Gorehowl. I think it was a very early pick in the draft, right? It was like pick 1 or 2, something
I
like
think it
that.
was the 8th pick.
Okay.
It was between. There was also a Frothing and a Blood Razor that were in the pack.
Okay.
I remember this one as well because I loved the Frothing, and yeah, that was a really
I
different.
was a little surprised to see the Gorehowl over the Frothing. I can understand, passing the Blood Razor there, but I know Frothing has been pretty insane for me.
I think it was part because we used to see that 3/3 that buffs a weapon in your hand a lot more often than I did on the last.
Broker.
Yeah, right. That pawnbroker guy.
Oh, the MSG card. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that might have changed, the way that you like to do your drafts, and we sort of fell into it.
Because that on a Gorehowl, yes, is amazing.
Because it gives you so much reach, and in general, like the Gorehowl gives you, it's a win condition on its own because it can get rid of 2 big to medium-sized minions and still give you like 5 damage reach, or just win you the card advantage game as long as you have enough life. So yeah, it's a card, an insane card advantage card and a win condition on its own.
I get back to your Paladin draft. Triggerfingers just said in chat, if obviously if you go for the big 3 status drops, but you miss them and ignore the 2 drops, can't you put yourself in like pretty much a difficult situation there? I can't remember your draft exactly at the point where you were turning down the 2 drops because they were quite late in the draft, but I believe you did have some good started 3 drops there.
Yeah, if we struggle to find the better 3 drops, then we probably would. We definitely would consider 2s. But I don't think we've actually had that situation. We seem to just find 3s really consistently. But the other thing is the 3 mana 3/1 Death Rattle. Just give you a Death Rattle card. What's its name? I can't remember its name. Anyway, Boris really likes that.
Gravedigger.
Yes,
yeah.
Boris really likes that, and I do, and so we quite often end up picking those up as well. So we end up with a decent amount of 3s, some of which I don't love, but we have the numbers, and they quite often do enough anyway.
Like for me, the reason why I like that card, or at least like it more than Sim does, is you spend 3 mana, and if you're facing an opponent with a ping hero power, at least you only have spent 1 mana more than your opponent does to remove it, and you don't lose a card because you get your card back from the Death Rattle. And if your opponent doesn't have the ping for it, it at least challenges most 3 drops except the 3/4s.
Yeah, I do like the card myself as well. The problem is because of the short health, quite often that's where the opponent can get the tempo swing by you playing a 3-cost minion, them cheaply removing it, and then them further developing, and then yes, you've got a card back, but that card back you've still got to play, which then could slow down your tempo even further and cruise in the gap that the other opponent has. So, you know, I take it in certain circumstances, but I am a little bit wary that it's kind of like I don't know what the term is, like a false profit card. You know, it can give you it can give you card advantage, but you can be sacrificing tempo/board state for it. But
I mean, the two paladins we had were quite different, because the one I played was one I drafted without Sam. So that deck actually had 2 drops in it. I think it was just the Murlocs, right? I think the it had 2 hydrologists, and after having 2 hydrologists, I think I picked one Rockpool Hunter, because it can actually buff your 2-drop to 3-drop size, so it challenges.
yeah,
Sam, when I showed that deck to Sam, he said I'm crazy because I picked 2 silver swords there, and he said he would never do that.
I wouldn't necessarily say never, but I definitely said I didn't draft this deck.
yeah, I would rarely as well. Why did you pick the 2 silver swords? Because they're just powerful cards.
I just decided, okay, my biggest minion is a 5-drop. Other than that, I just have to stick something on the board, and the silver swords are my win condition. I definitely want to turn 7 drop a vine cleaver, or at least be able to make sure I can turn 8 silver sword.
Okay. So, in regards to the classes you both chose to bring, obviously, you chose Paladin, Warlock, and Warrior. You know, what were your reasons for bringing, say, for example, we can understand Paladin, but the Warlock and Warriors, why did you end up choosing them over, like, a Rogue or...
The thing is, we want to keep it fair. That's the problem with the series and the way we drafted the decks. So we did do 2 rogue drafts this week, but they were on very different power level. Like, we had one rogue that was pretty good that went 9 wins in the arena, and the other one felt really poor. We didn't even play it. So we wanted to make it a fair playground there. That's why we choose. So Sam got the stronger, in our opinion, stronger warrior paired with the weaker warlock, and therefore I got the stronger warlock and the weaker warrior to just keep it fair somehow. And with the paladin, it was just a coin flip.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
By the way, did you end up playing all of the decks in the arena?
No.
We haven't yet, but we will do. So yeah, we've got drafts ready for the next week or 2.
All right. So was it just the one paladin that you ran 11 and 3?
No, we ran one rogue, which we didn't bring. That was the first draft we did this week. That went 9.
Yeah.
The rest of these decks today, though, you haven't played yet.
Yeah, just the rogue and the two paladins and warrior.
What did the second paladin go? If one went 11, do you know which the other one went?
The one I played was that. That one went 8.
8, is it? Okay. Reasonable. Fair enough. Okay, so I want to thank you both for playing. You mind
if I ask one last thing, Richie? Before,
go for it. Sorry.
This one is about the final match. There was one particular moment, I think, where Storm had a Bone Drake, and I think Sam's board was empty. And I think, Sam, you had the option to, because you had the Primordial Drake in hand, and I was looking at doing something like a Stonehill Defender into the Dragonling mechanic to maybe set up some sort of Primordial Drake. But you decided to go with the high attack minions, and it ended up paying off for you. Were you thinking of pushing for a counter lethal there? What was going through your mind? Can you talk
I'd hit that point. I was definitely pushing at that point because there was another decision around that time where I played the Stormwind Champion as well and pushed even more damage face. So I sort of looked at myself. I had the Avenging Wrath in hand and decided that I wanted to close this game out sooner rather than later. Did I get the Void Lord before or after? I think this was before I had the Void Lord, wasn't it?
That was,
Void
yeah,
Lord
you
came
got the...
off the Dark Possession. You almost didn't even need the Void Lord at that point. It was really, you set that up with the Panther and the Disciple, and then you went with the Stonehill and the Apple Bomb next turn. I was just wondering if you were consciously thinking of doing the Stonehill plus another taunt next turn to block that out.
Yeah. That was definitely my line. Is I wanted to push.
Yeah, it was a great line. I didn't see it at all, and I was like, wow, this is perfect. Because that was, I think, the big weakness with that Warrior deck. It just didn't quite have enough survivability, taunts and things to be able to deal. It was always seemed to get just too low on health.
Yeah. That was it. Is I saw the sort of gap in the defense and thought, I've got a good chance of finding 2. And I sort of sat and said to myself, right, I've got up to 5 mana. Sort of looked at the pool and thought, this is the line I want to take. So it was heavy pushing from there, and then the Stormwind Champ came down. It was still pushing. So the game plan was just push as hard as I can, and if it all fails, we still got Avenge and Wrath, and we just hope.
Yeah, on that Warrior deck, I had really high hopes for Darius Crawley, and it performed really underwhelming.
Yeah, but that was the other reason that I helped. Was if a Darius came down, it was going to be quite problematic if he could grow it. So I wanted to have that little bit of initiative as well if I needed it, so that I could just get it off the start.
You were able to go ahead.
It just sort of gave me the ability to be aggressive, but still have that fallback plan and continue the game for a bit longer if I needed to. So I took a punt, and
I also think it was the correct line in terms of, like, even if I find the Blood Razor that I was digging for with the Forge of Souls on that turn, he still has the stuff in hand to just drop big stuff, and after I've just set up a low attack weapon.
Yeah, it was a great
even
line.
then you're in an insanely dominant spot there.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay, so thank you for participating in this, Fen. You know, I definitely am enjoying this series and hoping to improve on it each week. Do you have anything you want to say about the series before we go on to yourselves?
Other than I had an absolute blast, and I really, really hope it's massively successful. I don't think I do have a great deal to add. I would really, really look forward if we could do like 2v2s or something like that. It could be really good fun as well, because that would sort of allow you to have much more of an outlook of how we play.
Yeah, no, that's definitely
sort of like how they do the Trinity series type of deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. It's something I would definitely like to do down the line, maybe when it's a bit more, maybe if it's a bit more established and a bit more, not necessarily the bugs ironed out, but it's a bit more comfortable to run, is probably the way to put it. But yeah, it's something I would definitely like to do down the line, and you know, I would definitely consider you two, or well, you three, as maybe a partnership to play in the duo match.
Also, on a different note, we also hope that in a future show, one of us could face like another streamer who's also playing on EU. So just we also get the to compete in the show the way it's intended, you know.
Yes, yeah, no, that would be ideal. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, because the way the rules are originally there to intend is to try and keep it as close to arena as possible. So you're blindly queuing, and you're blindly you don't know what your opponent is or class cards are until you are against them, you know, and you have to play to the odds of, oh well, we know, for example, Paladin have an increased rate of steeds, so we'll play around the steeds even if they might not have it. That type of situation, rather than just knowing they don't have it. So yeah, that's definitely something we'll get you into later down the line. So if you guys maybe want to, because obviously you're from the same channel, so if you guys just want to plug yourself, you know, you can take it in turns, or you know, go together, however you want to do it, whatever you feel comfortable.
I let the native English speaker do it.
Oh, thanks. Right, where to start? Just put me on the spot there. Cheers, Boris. So we're 3 guys, Sam Walker and Boris, who almost always play co-op arena. So there's usually 2, if not 3 of us. So it's quite sort of nice that we can sort of sit. We've got fairly different play styles. Walker sort of likes his cards which are a bit more on the fun side, he would certainly draft a deck of Wonders just because he wants to see what will happen. Whereas I think Boris and I are a little bit more about the sort of boring, consistent cards. But as you
Walker
see,
was also a fan of the Molten Blades.
Yeah.
Yes, he was indeed. He was indeed. So yeah, and as you've seen by Boris's draft and the way Boris has talked, we both have slightly different play styles. So there's like a lot of deliberating going on. We discuss a lot of lines of play, and yeah, generally just try to have a bit of a light-hearted laugh and chill out whilst trying to play Arena as well as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I have put your Twitch channel in the channel for people to potentially follow, and I will put it in the VOD, and I've put it on Reddit and Twitter, so hopefully for participating you do get some extra followers and you get some extra people watching your streams. That'd be great. That's one of the hopeful outcomes that I'm trying to get from doing this series, to grow Arena streamers that people aren't necessarily, had the chance to watch yet. So yeah, hopefully you get a positive outcome from this, and obviously Sam at this point in time has the bragging rights over Storm, but maybe when we do blind drafts and blind picks, so you don't know what each other's playing, it might go a different way. So yeah, thank you
I'm
all
pretty
for...
sure he'll let me know that he has the bragging rights by
Yeah.
for the next few weeks.
You don't need to, you already know, my friend.
Yeah. So yeah, he can take it as long as he wants, until you play again, pretty much, But yeah, so if you don't have anything else to say, then I think we'll end it there, unless you want to say something.
No, brilliant. Thank you
No?
very much for having us on.
Yeah.
It's been
Thanks for having us.
No problem.
guys.
Thanks for coming. Aknar, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's it, man. It's a great series, and glad to see us moving on, man. Getting more matches.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we've already got the next people lined up. I'm not going to go into their names now, but I will be posting the details shortly, because it's 99% sure that it's happening next week.
What a tease! What a tease!
Yeah, I know. I would like to post it straight away, but yeah, it's some very interesting leaderboard players coming up next week, so I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully keep the schedule going in advance quite quickly. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting match next week as well. But yeah, so thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.